Pain is the language of the soul. Pain is not random. Pain is not chaos. Pain is not a mistake in your life. Spiritually, pain is communication. Before pain ever enters your life loudly, it always arrives quietly. It begins as a feeling you can't quite explain, a heaviness in your chest, a restlessness in your mind, a subtle inner discomfort that whispers, something is not right. But most people ignore these whispers. We are taught to prioritize comfort over truth, to silence intuition with logic, to stay where it feels familiar, even if it feels empty, and every time you ignore your inner truth, you move further away from alignment. Pain appears when that distance becomes too great. Pain is the soul's last language. When your soul whispers and you do not listen, it raises its voice. When it raises its voice and you still ignore it, pain begins to scream. This is why pain often feels sudden, even though it never truly is. The heartbreak didn't happen overnight. The emotional collapse didn't come out of nowhere. The loss wasn't random. They were the final moments of a long period of inner misalignment. Pain does not arrive to surprise you. It arrives to stop you. Emotionally, pain almost always points to attachment. You do not suffer because you loved someone. You suffer because you forgot yourself inside them. You attached your sense of worth to their attention. You attached your peace to their presence. You attached your happiness to their consistency. Spiritually, attachment is not love. Attachment is dependence. It is when your inner state depends on something outside of you, and the moment that external thing changes, your inner world collapses. Pain enters your life to break that dependence. That is why heartbreak hurts so deeply. It is not just the loss of a person. It is the loss of an identity. The version of you that existed through them no longer has a place to stand. Pain removes illusions. Mental pain, anxiety, overthinking, inner chaos comes from resistance. Resistance to reality, resistance to change, resistance to letting go of control. The mind wants certainty. The soul wants growth. And when the mind tries to control what the soul is trying to evolve, suffering is created. Anxiety is not weakness. Anxiety is the mind fighting the unknown instead of trusting the process. Spiritually, anxiety appears when you try to predict outcomes instead of surrendering to truth. Physical pain often carries emotional memory. What you do not express emotionally, the body eventually stores physically. Unprocessed grief settles in the chest. Suppressed anger tightens the jaw. Fear overstimulates the nervous system. The body remembers what the mind avoids. Pain shows you where you have abandoned yourself, where you stayed silent instead of speaking truth, where you tolerated disrespect to avoid loneliness, where you ignored your needs to keep others comfortable. Pain is honest. It does not flatter you. It does not comfort you. It does not negotiate. It simply reveals. Pain exposes where you are out of alignment with who you truly are. And here is a truth very few people are ready to hear. Pain does not come when you are weak. Pain comes when you are ready. If you were not strong enough to face awakening, pain would wait. If you were not ready to grow, pain would delay itself. Pain arrives when your soul believes you can survive the truth. This is why two people can experience the same situation, and only one of them transforms. Pain does not change everyone. It changes those who listen. Pain is not asking you to become harder. It is asking you to become truer. Many people try to heal pain by distracting themselves. They look for motivation, positivity, or spiritual bypassing. But pain does not want to be fixed. Pain wants to be understood. The moment you stop asking, "How do I make this stop?" and start asking, "What is this showing me?" you step into spiritual awareness. Pain is a mirror. It reflects your wounds, your patterns, your unmet needs, and your unspoken truths. It shows you where you are living unconsciously. Pain interrupts autopilot living. Without pain, most people would never question their lives. They would repeat the same patterns, chase the same validation, and remain disconnected from themselves. Pain forces awareness. It slows you down. It strips distractions, it removes false comfort, and in that silence you finally hear yourself. Pain is not here to destroy you. Pain is here to wake you up. Once you understand this, pain loses its power to control you. Because you no longer see it as an enemy, you see it as a message, and every message, once understood, no longer needs to repeat itself. Pain is the initiation into spiritual growth. There is no spiritual awakening without pain. This truth appears in every ancient tradition, every sacred text, every path of inner growth. Transformation has always required discomfort, loss, and surrender. Not because life is cruel, but because comfort preserves while pain evolves. Comfort keeps you who you are. Pain demands who you must become. Spiritually, pain is an initiation. An initiation is not gentle. It is not soft. It does not ask for permission. It strips away illusions, false identities, and outdated beliefs. It removes what no longer aligns with your soul's next level. This is why pain feels personal, because it targets the parts of you that are false. Pain does not destroy who you are. It destroys who you are no longer meant to be. This is why after deep pain people say, "I don't recognize myself anymore," and they are right. The version of you that existed before the pain cannot survive after it. That version was built on coping, pleasing, attachment, and unconscious patterns. Pain dismantles that structure completely. Spiritually, pain is a death, not a physical one, but an identity death. It kills the ego's illusions. It dissolves false confidence. It shatters imagined futures. And death is necessary for rebirth. Pain matures the soul. After pain, people become quieter, not because they are broken, but because they are no longer distracted by noise. They listen more. They observe more. They react less. They stop chasing what doesn't choose them. They stop explaining themselves to those who misunderstand them. They stop needing approval to exist. Pain humbles you. It removes arrogance, the belief that life should go according to your plans. It teaches you that control is an illusion and surrender is not weakness, but wisdom. Pain also isolates you. This isolation is misunderstood. Many think pain isolates because something is wrong with them. Spiritually, isolation happens because distraction must be removed. Growth does not happen in noise. When pain enters deeply, friendships fade, social energy drops, and familiar environments feel empty. Not because you are being punished, but because solitude is required for integration. Silence is where transformation occurs. Pain forces introspection. It asks questions you avoided for years. Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Why do I fear being alone? Why do I give more than I receive? Why do I ignore my own needs? Pain removes autopilot living. Before pain, many people live unconsciously, reacting, repeating, surviving. Pain interrupts this cycle. It forces you to become aware. Awareness is uncomfortable because awareness demands responsibility. You can no longer blame others once you see your patterns. You can no longer pretend once truth is revealed. This is why many people try to escape pain instead of learning from it. Not because pain hurts, but because truth does. Pain destroys false timelines, the future you imagined, the relationship you believed was guaranteed, the version of life you expected to live. Spiritually, pain is the moment life says that path would have limited you. Pain removes what feels right but isn't aligned. Often, what we desire emotionally is not what we need spiritually. Pain separates attachment from destiny. This is why losing something painful often becomes the greatest turning point in life. Pain also deepens empathy. Those who have never felt deep pain often remain shallow in understanding. But those who have suffered develop compassion, not as an idea, but as lived experience. Pain opens the heart. It softens judgment. It humanizes you. It makes you aware that everyone is carrying something unseen. This is why awakened people are gentle, not because they are weak, but because they understand. Pain teaches discernment. After pain, you become selective. You no longer give access to everyone. You protect your energy. You value peace more than excitement. This is spiritual maturity. You stop romanticizing chaos. You stop confusing intensity with love. You stop mistaking attention for connection. Pain teaches you what truly matters. And here is an important spiritual truth. Pain repeats only when its lesson is ignored. If you don't learn from pain, it returns. different faces, same feeling, different situations, same wound. Life is patient, but it is persistent. Pain will revisit until awareness arrives. Once awareness arrives, pain has done its job. This is why some people stay stuck for years, while others transform in months. The difference is not strength, it is willingness to face truth. Pain is not meant to be avoided. It is meant to be integrated. When you integrate pain, it turns into wisdom. When you avoid pain, it turns into cycles. Spiritually awakened people do not wish pain away. They respect it because they understand pain did what comfort never could. It woke them up, transforming pain into power, peace, and self. Mastery. Pain itself is not the problem. Resistance is. This is one of the most important spiritual truths you will ever understand. Pain becomes suffering only when you fight it, when you deny it, when you numb it, when you demand it leave before it has finished teaching you. Spiritually awakened people do not avoid pain. They sit with it, not because they enjoy it, but because they understand it. Pain wants your awareness, not your fear. The moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" something shifts. Pain begins to loosen its grip. Transformation always begins with acceptance. Acceptance does not mean you like pain. It does not mean you approve of what happened. It means you stop fighting reality. And when you stop fighting reality, reality stops fighting you. Pain thrives on resistance. It dissolves in awareness. When you sit with pain without judging it, without dramatizing it, without running from it, you begin to see clearly. You notice patterns. You see where you overgave, where you ignored red flags, where you betrayed your own needs, where you stayed too long, where you hoped instead of acted. Pain reveals truth without mercy, but also without lies. This is where pain begins to transform. Most emotional pain exists because of self-betrayal, not because others hurt you, but because you stayed when your soul said leave. You tolerated what drained you. You remained silent when truth needed a voice. Pain ends when self-betrayal ends. This is why boundaries are spiritual. Boundaries are not walls. They are acts of self-respect. The moment you stop tolerating what dishonors you, pain loses its purpose. Pain also transforms when you stop identifying with it. You are not your pain. You are the awareness experiencing it. This distinction is powerful. When you say, "I am broken," pain owns you. When you say, "I am experiencing pain," you reclaim control. Spiritually mature people observe pain instead of becoming it. They understand that pain is a temporary state, not an identity. Another key to transformation is responsibility. Responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for what happened. It means taking ownership of how you respond. You cannot control what hurt you, but you can control what you become because of it. Pain can either make you bitter or make you wise. The choice is always yours. Pain turns into power when you extract its lesson. Every pain carries wisdom. Heartbreak teaches self-worth. Loss teaches impermanence. Rejection teaches alignment. Loneliness teaches self-connection. When the lesson is learned, pain has no reason to stay. This is why some people heal quickly, because they listen. Others stay stuck, because they resist. Pain also ends when you stop trying to go back. Many people suffer because they want the past to return. They want closure, apologies, explanations, or outcomes that no longer exist. Spiritually, healing begins when you accept that some doors close to protect you. Not every ending needs closure. Some endings need acceptance. Peace arrives when you stop negotiating with what is over. Pain transforms into peace when you stop chasing meaning outside of yourself. You realize you don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need validation to be worthy. You don't need guarantees to trust life. This is spiritual independence. The calm that follows pain is not excitement, it is clarity. You become quieter, not because you have less to say, but because you no longer need to prove anything. You become selective, not because you fear people, but because you value peace. You become grounded, not because life is perfect, but because you are aligned. This is what self mastery looks like. Pain also teaches detachment. Not emotional coldness, but emotional freedom. You stop clinging, you stop forcing, you stop chasing, you allow life to flow, and paradoxically, this is when life gives more. Pain refines your intuition. After pain, you sense energy before words, you trust feelings over promises, you listen to silence more than explanations. This is wisdom earned, not taught. One of the most powerful realizations comes later, quietly. The pain that almost destroyed you was protecting you. It removed what would have slowly drained you. It redirected you from a path that wasn't aligned. It forced growth before stagnation consumed you. At the time, it felt cruel, but in hindsight, it was precise. Pain was not chaos, it was correction. The peace that follows pain is different from happiness. Happiness depends on circumstances. Peace comes from alignment. Peace does not disappear when things go wrong. Peace remains because it comes from within. This is why spiritually mature people are calm in storms. They've already survived the worst storms inside themselves. And finally, this truth must be said. Pain leaves when its work is done. Not when you beg it to go, not when you numb it, not when you pretend to be healed. Pain leaves when you integrate its wisdom, when you stop repeating the same patterns, when you stop abandoning yourself. When you choose truth over comfort, at that moment pain has no role left. It releases you and you move forward, not unscarred but refined, stronger, calmer, wiser, more yourself than ever before. Pain was never your enemy. Pain was your teacher. Pain was your initiator, and once the lesson is learned, pain steps aside.